Hi all, we're here at Make Haven and we're going to do a quick review of our remove the fume extractor that we use for the welding area. So we got this guy set up about 2 years ago, and so thought it was time to do a review, based on how we've seen it perform so far. And all in all, I gotta say it's pretty great. I think the best piece for us is the flexibility. We have people in here, working on MIG, TIG, oxyacetylene behind me, which we'll demonstrate a little bit of. We have the kiln going sometimes, stick, all kinds of things going on, making all kinds of fumes. And so it's important for this to be able to be very maneuverable. And as I'll show you, it has a pretty great reach. It can go clear across the room. If someone's working way over here, you just need to be a little mindful of the light up on the ceiling. And then this hood can be angled just where you need it. And obviously the best part is that it stays where you put it. So that's kind of the dream, that for this whole area we can have it be covered by this one fume hood. We're actually hoping to extend this by adding an additional unit on the side to reach over to our jewelry area, which will let us get the fumes over there as well. This does have a gate in it, so you can control the flow. To be honest, we always just leave it open and then control it using the switch that we installed on the wall. I think some models come with a light, which I could definitely see being useful. We have pretty good overhead lighting here, so I haven't seen that be a need quite yet. But if you're welding, it can be nice to have a little extra light. So when you're lining up under the hood, you can see things nicely. Then I'll just show you a little more about the actual unit up on the wall. So up here is where we have the unit mounted. It's pretty big. In the pictures online, it doesn't, I don't think, quite capture the size. It's a big guy, but here it's out of the way for us. We have some shelves underneath. I'll flip it on so you can hear it. We just have a switch wired up. And don't want to try to talk over the fan, but you could probably see that this didn't turn red at all. So this is a little convenient meter so you can see when the filter's clogged. We've been using this for a year and a half, 2 years, and it's not even registering on that meter. So we were originally pretty worried about the filter getting clogged up and having to replace it and deal with all of that. But to be honest, it's not even registering that there's any resistance through the filter yet. So that's pretty awesome. We have about 400 members here at Make Haven, a lot of them using the welding area. And especially when someone's just learning oxyacetylene, it puts out a lot of soot. So it's doing a pretty good job if it hasn't been feeling that yet. We can just get a little closer here to look at the hookup. So this on the wall, this is just the filter. This is just the big filter unit. And over here is actually the fan. So this fan is just connected to the switch that we mounted on the wall. And it sucks through this tube and then blows the exhaust fume air through this big filter, which then exhausts back to the room. There's a latch on the front, so you just flip the latch and can take the big red hood off when you want to replace the filter. There's I think 3 latches in total on it. And then here is another cutaway, so you could lop that off and put another filter unit on the other side if you want double the double the fan. So there would be a whole nother fan unit and arm that would attach onto that side. Something else is that we don't have it hooked up, but on the top you can see that that's where it's exhausting, and there are ports that you can attach to. We actually have an exhaust right here. I turned it off just so you can hear me, but if we didn't have that, it might make sense to pipe the exhaust somewhere. As it is, it just goes back to the room because we have pretty good air movement through this room. So now I'm just going to light up the oxyacetylene torch so you can see the kind of draw that the unit gets and how it does a pretty great job of going wherever you need it and staying there, which is kind of the name of the game for this unit. And I'll also point out that we got this because it looks like a really good unit. It also, aesthetically looks really nice, and I'll show a little video of us putting it together and how that process looked. but it was also one of the most reasonably priced units on the market. And we went to a bunch of trade shows, you know, as we're setting up the shops, and there are a lot of people selling these units, and this is definitely on the more reasonable end of the price spectrum, which is great because we obviously is something we needed to set the space up safely. So it was great to be able to get it at a good price. So I have the gas turned on, and I'm just going to pull the hood over, and it pulls over pretty nicely. You can set it up wherever's convenient. So like this, I get a good view of the work and have all of this pulling away from me. Sometimes, you know, people will set it up in such a way so that it pulls in front of their face, which obviously isn't great. We, as I mentioned, have a lot of people using this space, most of them amateurs, so it's important that we have a system that makes it as easy to be safe as possible. We want the barrier to safety to be as low as it can be, and having this be super easy and flexible means that people will use it. So, you know, I think this is a decent setup for our imaginary job that we're doing right now. So we can just flip the switch on the wall. It will be hard to hear me, but you can see how well it takes up the fumes. Oxyacetylene before, you know it can be pretty darn sooty, and if you don't have a good smoke extractor going, then you have like just a bunch of snowflakes of carbon falling out of the air, which is pretty nasty. And so this guy didn't even have to be like right on top of the torch. It was pulling it off from the side, which is pretty dreamy. So it's been a few years since we set it up. Like I mentioned, I'll show a quick montage of the process. Press setting is a little more difficult because this wall is a rough rock, so it's a little hard to get things squared up on the rough surface. We also, I'll mention, I think we paid a little extra for a filter that can pull out the hexavalent chromium stuff that you get around stainless steel. So definitely not a chemist, but was happy to pay a little extra to make sure that we were able to filter out anything nasty from stainless steel. And we still, you know, don't get me wrong, we still have policies not welding anything galvanized, grinding off any coatings. So it's not like we let the fume hood let our safety policies slip or be less precautious, but it does give us peace of mind, and any folks who come through, you know, from the safety committee or from the fire department, so that they can be really confident that we have a good setup going down here.
So one of the things we had to contend with were all those pipes and conduit up on the wall. So we built a block to block the filter up, get it off the wall a little bit. You can see the filter down there on the floor. It's a pretty monster filter. Now we're drilling into the wall. Even with the hammer drill, it was a bit of a chore getting into the stone. But, you know, ended up getting it there. The unit also came with a pretty good length of hose to go between the filter and the fan. We ended up putting the two pretty close together, but you know, I think we ended up pretty happy with that. But there's some flexibility there if you wanted to mount the two further apart.
In terms of putting this guy away, you know, it just folds up and sits nicely against the wall. It has a fairly low profile. You know, for ours, it just sits right around this kiln that we have. And just like that, it tucks away as a pretty low profile. So yeah, I think we're pretty happy with it, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's in the market. So feel free to ask any questions you might have in the comments. Happy to speak to our experience. But I hope this was helpful, and have a good one.